All right. I always want to hear the general manager's report. I want to hear what he has to say.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President. I have several items to cover with you this morning. The first one I would like to come back to is, in fact, talk about electrification a little bit. The agency, when we brought this strategy forward, and we spent a lot of time with some of the best consultants in the industry who helped in Sound Transits and many others through their transition as well, setting a strategy forward to them. So I think the best way our agency is looking at this is we are in transition. It's not one of those things where you just hit the switch tomorrow when you have billions of dollars of infrastructure. So if we ordered all electric buses tomorrow, the question is, where do you plug them in? Well, you can't do that until such time as you've actually rewired, so to speak, and installed the infrastructure to help support them. So that is part of our transition that we're in, and it's a very complex topic. I was fortunate to join Mayor Wheeler and Maria Pope, the CEO of PGE, at the Global C40 conference this last fall. And so, yes, there's no question the planet is burning. But we need to do such in a transition that I think makes balanced sense. So, for example, we're only as good as the products that they put out there on the street. Literally through December, and not just recently as just last week, all 5 of our electric buses were parked because they're not operating properly. Now, most people wouldn't know that. Everyone just assumes that's a check in the box that just transition them and make them, go out there on the street. Well, we have to be careful that we have to put a product on the street if we're going to ask people to get out of their cars that's actually reliable and trustworthy. Otherwise, they're not going to come out of their cars. They're not going to make that transition. So that's an example.
There's no hope of getting people out of their cars whatsoever with the current state of public transportation in this country. It's not going to get anybody out of their cars. There's nothing to offer people that are driving. It's not reliable. It's not frequent enough. It doesn't go 24 hours. There's no backup service when things go wrong. There's no way that people are going to give up their cars for the state of public transportation. In Boston, where I am, which has got the worst traffic in the world, or in Portland, where I used to be for 20 years.
Trajectory is very clear. Yes, as was stated before, and I'll add a couple words to it, we will be out of diesel, our fleet converted by 2040 or before. And I, again, want to emphasize that before. As the board knows, this is a $1 billion plus transition program between buses and infrastructure. And part of what we indicated to the board is we don't have this fully funded, but we're moving anyway.
Yeah, but they're asking for $3 billion to put in light rail. Okay, so he just said it's $1 billion. It's going to cost $1 billion, and we don't have it. Well, they could ask for it on a referendum, but they're not doing that, are they? They're asking for money to build light rail. Well, there you go, man.
Particularly the back end of the plan. And so that's where the Metro T2020 ballot measure, all those supplemental revenue streams are going to assist us in accelerating up some of those conversions. Hopefully at some point, even the legislature, as it opines, on cap and trade. Things of that will benefit TriMet in this region in the acceleration up of the program that we so dearly want to participate in as well. But we need to do so in a way that actually can land and deliver delivery service every single day.
Yeah, you have to be serious about it. I mean, if the Chinese can figure it out, don't give me this bullshit that the Americans can't. They don't want to figure it out, obviously. They're not interested in figuring it out. I mean, I don't buy any of this. I think it's intentionally they're not going and doing it because they don't want to do it.
Not some days where for about a month you've actually parked your electric buses. That is not a reliable formula for our customers. One thing we have done, and as part of an announcement I did make with Mayor Wheeler, as coming back from the C40 conference, and TriMet was the only one at that conference with real dollars on the table at that press conference. So I announced that we will, of our existing fleet, while we transition with diesel, we're currently on ultra low sulfur diesel, we will be moving to B99, an 80-20 blend. So, sorry, R99, excuse me, thank you. R99 with about an 80-20 blend, that is an incremental cost to our financial statement now of $2.5 million per year. So can we get to better diesel while we transition to getting out?
$2.5 million a year is one capital projects change order. You got to keep this stuff in. I read these things. I read their board reports and how much money they are shoveling into capital projects. The money they hand out in capital projects is more than what he's talking about here.
Of diesel. So that is part of our investment program to suppress the emissions, fully acknowledging we want to get out as quickly as possible.
Yeah,
secondly,
right.
We are also the only agency in North America that we did announce that we will be 100% wind power on the MAX system.
Oh, boy.
Nobody else has done that. And that's about a third of all the ridership that we carry on a daily basis. So we are not only, it's not just a bus conversation, it's a way to look at our total fleet mobility as well.
What did we say, Doug?
We are converting, some individuals spoke today about East County, the eastern side, and the emissions that come out of that. Well, that is in fact the first depot that we are converting to be 100% capable to be electric. So our Powell garage, as the board has approved, is part of this complex strategy. If we only had one garage in this agency, as smaller transit agencies do, this would be a lot simpler conversation. But we move our fleet around every day for a bunch of operational needs, so you're only as good as where can you plug these in at night, no matter where the dance stops over the night, and then you reset again. So Powell is first up. We will we'll be working on Columbia, Center Street, and others, and we've got five locations at Merlo with plug-in spots. So we're transitioning the back room to help get ready to accept the front room for more and more electric buses. In about the next 4 years or so, we will be the largest deliverer and user of electric buses in the state. We'll be around 70 to 80 electric buses. So we are on a trajectory of change. What? With some assumptions built in, because there is a significant premium over a diesel bus today to get an electric bus. We're prepared to make some of those investments, and we are. But we're assuming the battery performance and the bus performance will, a few years out, will stabilize and mature. As I've said before, the mayor of Albuquerque actually pulled all their electric buses off the street because they just weren't performing. So we are in this. We are going to manage this, the tactical, the daily service, while we make the significant investment in the back room to help.
Why can't the Chinese do it? Why? Nobody ever asked, how did the Chinese do this? Why are they more advanced than us?
The front room and ready for it. So there's a lot of money. There's a lot of complexity that comes with this. We do rely on our suppliers. One example of innovation that this board, we're very grateful they approved, and we're working with Custom Coachworks down in California. We are actually piloting with them the first fully recycled electric articulated bus in the industry in this continent. And so we don't know how it's going to go, but if you can actually not only convert to what was an old rusty diesel articulated bus and rebuild it up to an electric bus. So how do you do the conversion? That and I sell.
Well, you take the engine out for one thing, and you put the new engine in.
Will be instructive, I think, for us, but also for our industry because it's not been done before. So we'll be testing that actually, and probably hopefully introducing it here at the Global Electric Vehicle Conference, which will be here actually right here in Portland this coming June.
That should be
and we're one of the key sponsors of that conference. So we are taking the trajectory of change, existing diesel, on a speed that we can manage and handle to get to the trajectory I think that we all want.
Well, as you hear from various people testifying, it's not fast enough. What they want is for you to take the light rail off the table and turn those buses into electric and move faster on this. And I know it's possible if there was a commitment to do it. But, there is no real commitment to do it. Everything is privatized. It's like, well, we can't get a private vendor to make the decent bus. I have a hard time believing I just have a hard time believing this never-ending line of excuses why they can't have electric buses.
What we don't know is, and I've mentioned to the board, I will be coming back to the board in several years to confirm before we put the flag down, are we going all electric? I wouldn't count out hydrogen. The supply chain is not here in Oregon, let alone the state, for hydrogen's future currently. But hydrogen is a very serious option, I believe, on the horizon in different parts of the world. And I think we have to keep an eye out as to what that means, because you don't want to get stuck with what I call regret capital, where you've made the investment and you go, there's a shift in the marketplace of technology and performance, and now you're left with all the infrastructure on a...
Well, that would describe light rail right there, which is an old early 1900s technology. I mean, they're putting the investment into the light rail, and they're not making these kind of excuses. But you see, they're investing in an old technology. It's called light rail. A city street level rail. They don't seem to have a problem with that, but they don't want to. But they're worried about. You know what I'm talking about. He's just a fast talking salesman, is what he is. Just look at that guy.
What was thought to be the best technology of the day, but it may have changed. So we're trying to manage the risk of capital while we manage the change of complexity and be a good partner in this carbon change trajectory. If we can get out sooner, we will. So,
is there any
happy to answer comments from the board on this.
Questions from the board? I mean, because this is a highly charged issue, Director White.
Sorry, I keep pressing the wrong button. Thank you so much, Doug, for the report back. I wanted to ask you a question around our workforce development. And as we are, as you said, transitioning into cleaner options for our transit, what sort of workforce needs do you anticipate in terms of training that comes with hopefully the transition into greener alternatives? Because I'm also hearing from testimony today that we need to have a TriMet workforce that is ready, to take on the electrification, and that requires mentorship, that requires programs in order to equip folks here in Oregon to meet those needs.
Yeah, great question. So we are, with the industry, actually, if you only go back probably 12, 18 months, in fact, you had people who were in buses getting into electric, and people in electricity getting into...
They had electric buses, by the way. When I was a kid, I used to ride trolley buses in Boston. They've already had electric buses. They already had the technology, but now they want to have battery charged buses instead of wired buses. I don't know, man. This is government, they're not honest about anything.
Battery buses. So the industry is still evolving, frankly, in the actual product side of things, and it's continuing to evolve. You actually watch some of the product you see out there today, I suspect, will not necessarily be the product coming at us even 5 years from now. With that, though, we do know we are going to be investing more in training, because they're working on a diesel bus is not the same as working on an electric bus. So, these buses don't have transmissions. They don't have other parts. In fact, the life cycle cost is actually expected to be lower on an electric bus over its life cycle, yet to be proven, but I'm optimistic that will occur. But with that will come the training internally as well as some parts externally. So we'll be working with what those models need to look like, but there's no question internal training will be an absolute component of this. It's critical.
Yeah, right.
Great. And then just to follow up on that, do we have
I get a headache from these board meetings. I really have I just have a hard time watching these people. The only thing about the board meeting I like is the public testimonies. The rest of this is some kind of never-ending bullshit.
Plan in place where we can see, 5 years from now, how these training programs are going to be implemented, as well as what is the workforce that we're trying to develop. Because I agree with you. I think the industry is, it changes overnight, right? It's a rapidly growing industry. There's still new technology that needs to be tested. But I want to reassure the workers that we have at TriMet that we are also not leaving them behind, right?
No, why don't you get serious here and stop trying to bust the union if you want to worry about the workers. Forget about this shit. Stop trying to take away things from the union members right now.
That we are bringing them along as we're transitioning to greener technology.
Yeah.
I, as one board member, I want to give assurance to our workers that.
Yeah, good for you.
Well, I think, firstly, we don't know what we know what our general trajectory is of conversion and speed. And it depends if T2020 goes through. All of a sudden, that may accelerate. There's some pretty structural things that can alter the trajectory of how fast we make this conversion. I'll call it future investments. So we have a base one today, and I think the board is aware of, just talked about 70, 80 buses here in the next sort of 4 to 5 years as an example. So with that, we'll need to come supplemental training and some of the workforce numbers, so we do have those, what that generally looks like. I'll call that as a base case. But we're going to need to be flexible on what that looks like, subject to the other changes that are coming of acceleration. I'm hoping there's an acceleration comment up. That's code for saying we'll need more external funding to help accelerate the conversion up. But if we can do that, then that will be on top of what I'll call the base case. So yes, there will be supportive training to help in that.
Great. I'll just close this out. Thank you for answering my questions. I do hope that we can continue to bring all of the key stakeholders, our maintenance.
I hate that word stakeholders. I hate that. I just makes me want to punch the screen. There is no stakeholders. There's a board of directors and a general manager. They make all the policies. Everybody else is outside of that. This never-ending charade to pretend that they're actually listening to us just pisses me off.
Crew are again the workers, right? The folks who operate on our buses. I hope we do bring their voices into the discussion, because they're the front lines. They're the people who are going to be working on our vehicles. And
here, listen to this. I'm just reading an article here. Every 5 weeks, 9,500 brand new electric buses take the roads in China. Every 5 weeks, China is producing 9,500 brand new electric buses, but here in the United States, we can't figure it out. I don't believe it. There's something wrong with this. I just can't believe that they can't figure this out. There's something else going on here that they're not telling us about. And I'm reading this from the World Economic Forum. Okay.
I would not want to see them left out of this conversation.
Well, we have 5 electric buses today, and they're working on 5 electric buses. So
great.
We've got 5 electric today.
Clarification, point of order question. I really wasn't under the impression that as board we are allowed, frankly, to enter directly into the negotiation.
I don't like this guy. He is a mayoral candidate. Look at him, man. He's way too. I mean, he worked at CM2 Hill, and he's just way too. I don't know. He started doing Twitter for a while, and he was talking about TriMet, and then he decided he didn't want to talk about TriMet anymore. And so there's something slippery about this guy.
Conversations, and last I checked, that's outside of the jurisdictional function of the board. Just for the record, could you please check my sanity on that, General Counsel? Is this within the jurisdictional authority of board members to get involved, or where do we land on that?
What is that supposed to mean?
We do have a bargaining team that's already
that you don't pay any attention to.
chosen by this board, has already allotted that team to be the bargaining agent for TriMet.
What does that mean?
And as I understand, the jurisdictional authority of the board is in the form of establishing the policy priorities for what needs to be done. As Director Y very nicely states, we get to say it's important to make sure to hear from the interests of the workforce that we're impacting in our transition. And
hilarious.
It's worth noting that regardless of what happens in the negotiation of the contract today, the trajectory, the mega trajectory here is clear. We're moving towards a different technology type. The jobs of the future require that we figure out how to adapt the skill sets that we have today into those jobs of the future without letting people go in the process. So the conversations we need to have are not just about protecting the program we have in place, but ensuring that we have a program in place for that next generation of technology. And I think that's a place I want to make sure that we're having that level of conversation.
What a bunch of
I'm not
baloney.
sure
Come on.
whether this is the contract, this contract is the place to have it, versus being able to talk about how apprenticeship programs are going to adapt.
What?
So that's just to try to understand what it is that we're entrusted to do as a volunteer policy advisory board versus being potentially more destructive than helpful in processes that we're not either trained or set up to be involved with.
I don't like that. I don't know what he's talking about. But
I'll just say, that's exactly right. The board is the policy makers, but we have a bargaining team that's already been chosen, selected, and is engaged.
the board is a sock puppet
Thank
group.
you. Thank you. And I'll leave it in closing by acknowledging whether it's the negotiation.
The general manager, I'm not sure where he's getting his actual directions from, but my guess is it's the public transportation industrial complex itself, which is like CMH2 Hill, Bechtel, the light rail mafia. Those are the people that are conspiring with him to make sure the money keeps flowing to them. And the board just rubber stamps all of these deals that are made between the general manager and all these various private entities out there, which siphons the tax money into the private pockets. The board doesn't do anything. They just meet once a month, and they don't have anything to do with the operation at all. They really are just window dressing.
Of contracts or the electrification plan. I'm glad that we have folks in the room speaking on both of those issues because they're interwoven. One affects the other. While we're pulling towards electrification, we're also threatening the jobs of diesel mechanics and the diesel mechanic apprenticeship program that is currently under negotiation. And we're in the pivot moment of a transition here.
What are you trying to?
And recognizing that the agency is leaning into balancing the promise to workers, the promise to the
only thing this guy has is that he's Hispanic. The rest of him is totally neoliberal. Okay, now he's neoliberal all the way, and he even fits the the equity paradigm because he's not white, right? And the equity paradigm is a fraud because it's not going to create actual change. Obama proved that. He's black and he did the bidding of Wall Street.
Community to bring service out there without delaying the service options. We have to expand service, but we can't buy things that aren't yet on a shelf. And if we have the opportunity to bring vendors forward that can provide these systems, the buses that we can purchase and put online, those provide fantastic options for us. But without those vendors, we rely on the marketplace. And I encourage all those out there to please help us provide a...
Yeah, that's the problem. We are stuck with the marketplace. See, that is the actual difference between this and China. In China, it's centralized. The government said, we're going electric. And then they took the whole project on themselves, and they made available the amount of cash that needs to be made available to develop the technology. That's not what's happening here. Plus, here we have the petrodollar. A lot of the economy is based around the petrodollar. So there's no real urgency to get away from gas. They want the people that are running this whole country want to keep us gas dependent. Okay, we know there's two different societies. One is going crazy getting electric. The other one can't figure it out. Well, if one society can figure it out, that means the other one can't. So there's something structural in the middle here that's stopping us from doing it. Because you can't tell me that China can add 5,000 buses a week and we can't figure out how to get two running. There's something wrong here. It doesn't make sense. That's what I'm trying to say. There's some kind of underlying conspiracy here that's preventing this country from moving forward here in the world of electrification.
Pipeline of electric vehicle solutions that are going to help TriMet and are going to help everybody else not riding TriMet. Those are parts of the problem. We need folks to lean into that piece.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
Why don't you shut
Just
up?
tag on to this. I think what's very important when one has an existing base of a business size that we do, we want to encourage innovation, but it has to be proven innovation. Because it's like a McDonald's hamburger, they just don't let any hamburger that shows up into the franchise line. You've got to earn your right,
What?
and it's got to be a proven, demonstrated product because it is changing. So we balance innovation with the ability to execute, and that is really important in a high transaction, high volume environment on a very large asset base. There's, how do you manage that, particularly on the supplier side is where the context I'm referring to.
And I've got just a brief comment that I want to make in regards to, being a board member and sometimes listening to the public comment. I appreciate the public comment, and as a board, I'm sure we all do. And the challenge sometimes becomes looking at the totality of what we get to see and consider. And every person that comes is privy to their opinion as they bring it and as they see it, and we respect that. But there's also a lot of information that goes into these decisions that has been collected over the years. There was, a person who mentioned the autonomous car conversation. We've received numerous presentations in regards to the autonomous vehicle conversation. And while, yes, we potentially will go to that, just the sheer infrastructure of our streets and our grids does not support the movement of people, even in an autonomous vehicle perspective, if the autonomous vehicles aren't mass transit type of vehicles. And there's numerous opportunities to go back and look at the various informations that we've been providing over that time frame to kind of see where we get to these decisions. They're not made. Get that information.
That goes on and on.
Folks are interested.
Not spoken about today is going to be conducting TriMet's first ever carbon baseline. We got to start somewhere because we've been talking about buses, but there's a lot of other things we talk about. We generate waste. What do you do with batteries? What do we do with recycling? What do we do with a whole lot of things? So typically we're going to do a carbon baseline to develop a long-term strategy, including a waste audit. And then over the next year, I will bring back to this board a long-term getting to net zero for this organization. What does that trajectory and plan and affordability look like? So the buses is one component in this far broader game of how we as a culture and an agency help shape leadership, not only for ourselves, be a contributor to this region. So just with that, I'll take a big risk and move on. Just a quick update for...
I just want to read this one part here on this. The Chinese have a 99% stranglehold on production and use of electric batteries. The United States has a little chance of matching China until we have a president and a Congress that understand the urgency and inevitability of a carbon-free future. See, so that's the point I'm making. Nobody cares about this at higher levels, even at TriMet levels, to do anything about it. And so they're doing nothing. They're not doing any. All of this is just window dressing. They're talking. They got a couple here, a couple there. They may put it in the media like it's some big deal, but it's all your usual fraudulent government propaganda show.
For you, on the January ridership, we moved over 8 million trips this last month. System-wide ridership was essentially flat for the month.
It's always flat.
Typically, it's been up over the last probably 6+ months, which is just excellent, breaking some of the national trend. Although the national trend, by the way, was up 2.2%, but really driven by New York Transit, MTA in New York, and WMATA, which is the Washington, D.C. system, two large systems. Back closer to home, though, we saw 1.1 million weekly trips, which is an increase of 2% on the system, which is excellent. Yeah. The weekend bus ridership was up over 4% for us. Our frequent bus lines continue to be one of our nice performers and accounts for about 55% of all the bus rides on the system now. And we will continue to expand the frequent service with our March 1st. Some of you may have seen those announcements coming out. Service changes when we upgrade lines 20 and 76 to frequent service.
I'm looking at their chart at TriMet.org, and I just see flat. It looks flat to me. The ridership stays within this band. So I really don't know what he's talking about.
For January, we saw a 2.5% year-over-year increase in the weekend ridership on the frequent service lines themselves. Again, another positive for the system. And if you talk to any operators, particularly around some of the enhanced transit corridors, they're all thumbs up, saying thank you for all the time savings. I was just riding home last night and talking to one of the operators, and they love the enhanced transit. So again, kudos to the City of Portland, the Rose Lanes. Big thanks to Chloe Udaly for that as well and her leadership. On MAX, that was down about 3% compared to last January at 705,000. Did see positive.
See, light rail ridership, it's not there, man. It's not there yet. They're going to move forward with the Southwest Corridor. Hopefully, the voters will see the scam for what it is and tell them no. Let them find the money somewhere else.
Gains on the Orange Line, again, that's both weekdays, weekends. West continues to be a problem for us, but we do have a 50-year no-cut contract, and we're doing what we can with it on the operating side.
50-year no-cut contract. That's what they do with your taxpayer money. I mean, who had the authority to make a 50-year contract? Who proved that? I mean, really, it's incredible how they operate, isn't it? It's incredible how they completely operate independent of any kind of, there's no accountability there. There's no answerability. They do what they want, and we're all outside looking in at their bungling. I mean, West is a clear example of complete bungling by TriMet management.
But it is a challenge.
Yeah, challenge.
The next topic I'd like to transition into, if I could, is really how we speed up transit. In part because we're continuing our largest bus expansion in our history.
I don't even believe that.
So we're all part of this. So
they keep saying that, but I don't believe it. I read the budget. It says they're expanding service by 2.5%. He's bragging that that's the largest expansion in history. Is 2.5% service on the ground? I don't have access to the actual numbers over time, but I don't believe it, man. I know they've been cutting bus service ever since they introduced the light rail, so this may be the first actual expansion of bus service since they brought the light rail into being. But the largest in its history, it can't be, because when they started that's the largest expansion in history when they started TriMet. So they're saying a 2.5% increase in bus service is the largest expansion in history. And nobody's challenging because we have no media. There's no media that looks into any of this. The media just pumps out their propaganda at will.
Only a couple of years ago, this agency sat in front of you to talk about we were just over 600 buses, 630 or so. Well, we're now getting close to 800. This agency in about 5 years will be somewhere around 950, 970 buses. So we are growing. It often gets lost in the order of the day, but the trajectory is very positive, and that's without T20, the T2020 ballot measure. When that goes, strap in. It's going to be a really exciting ride.
Yeah, no, it isn't. It's going to be horrible. It's only all that's going to do is expand the light rail. That's going to do nothing for the bus services, and activists have asked for some of that money to go for on the ground bus services, and they were denied by TriMet. And all this activity around the transit is all happening because they want the voters to think positive thoughts about transit in the region. And none of this would be happening if they didn't have this tax thing coming up. This is all a coordinated effort to impact the minds of the citizens to get this tax thing passed, and hopefully people won't fall for it. The people in the Portland metro region have not been fooled the last several times this stuff has come up before them. So will they be fooled this time? It's been a while since there's been a TriMet measure in front of them, but the last few have failed.
But part of putting more buses on the system is also making the system faster and more reliable for everybody who uses it every day. We can have lots of buses, but if they're not reliable, people are not prepared to invest, let alone build their lives around what we put on the table. So we have to earn that right every day, and we know that.
They're not. We know that. We know that.
Again,
we listen to the operation. We know they're not reliable. They can sit there and lie all day long, and we know what's the truth.
We'll talk a little bit later in the briefing about the enhanced transit corridor. It really is an exciting partnership and story, but it is only the start. We have to do this not only in the city of Portland, but throughout this region. This has to be a fundamental fabric. Our customers don't care what municipality boundary they're crossing. They just need to know where they need to go on their terms. And that's part of us doing the regional thinking, not just in working with our municipal partners. The line 20, Burnside Stark, again, that new line it'll be 26.5 miles between the Beaverton Transit Center and Gresham's Transit Center. This is one of our longest and most popular bus routes. It's also one of our 2 24-hour bus routes. So down in the future, still like to even put more 24-hour service.
Yeah, it's once an hour, can't brag about it's going 24 hours, but being once an hour at 1 a.m. is not much of a service.
Out there as the economy continues to grow and expand.
The economy continues. Yeah, I guess he hasn't been watching the stock market.
The line 76, the Beaverton to Tualatin, that frequent service line will be a call for more buses to serve Washington County between Beaverton, Washington Square, and Tigard Transit Centers. It includes Tualatin Park and Ride and the Legacy Meridian Park Hospital, for those who know where that is. The frequent bus services and trains arrive every 15 minutes or more most of the day, every single day.
No, it's from 7 to 7. That's not most of the day, that's half the day.
The addition of our line 20 and 76, the frequent service network will grow to 23 lines now.
Yeah, that 76 needed frequent service when I was working there, and that was 9 years ago now. That's been woefully underserved for years.
So if we look at that's about 17 bus lines and our 5 MAX lines. So we continue to permeate this grid, this network of the hub and spoke approach. The spring improvements will also include changes aimed at speeding up the buses. Line 4, the Fesden line, Line 17, the Holgate Broadway line, and Line 70, the 12th and Northeast 33rd lines. More continues to come. Not only new buses, but how do we rewire? And we're actually changing our schedules to squeeze minutes out and the handoffs of this orchestra that we try and pull off every day for our customers. Again, we're also making changes to the MAX system, as you heard from today. Yes, we are looking to close stations that's board approved. That starts in March to speed the system up. We will track this over time. There will be a transition period of time as we are still working with our engineering and the City of Portland teams on the engineering, the signaling system. It's a behind-the-scenes thing, so this will happen in a couple of phases, but starting very, very quickly.
There's got to be something nefarious about the stations closing, because making all this happen over a couple of minutes doesn't make sense, especially since there's so many other things that slow down trains. I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, well, maybe this is a way to kettle the riders in more. They're trying to kettle the riders, you know what I mean? They're trying to put them in more compact spaces so they're easier to monitor. I think that might have more to do with it. There's something going on here that they're not talking about other than speeding up the system by 2 minutes, because that doesn't make any sense. Closing a station to speed up the system by 2 minutes. That doesn't make sense to me.
The MAX schedules themselves, we are squeezing several more minutes out on productivity out of our MAX schedules now that do nothing but benefit the customer. So this is all part of the rewiring of what we do inside as we add an expansion on from the outside. Now you overlay the electrification, you overlay all these other things. There's a pretty complex transition of a very large capital-based portfolio that we have. In December, the MAX lines themselves were on time, 90% on time performance. In fact, the whole year now.
It's funny, all these transit agencies say they're on time 90%. MBTA says that too. And we don't believe it. They're not factoring in something. There's all these MAX disruptions that we hear daily, every fucking day, 2 or 3 of them. And he's trying to tell us it's 90% on time. There's something they're leaving out. That it can't be right. I know that in the situation of MAX, they just changed train numbers. A really late train will take over another train number, and all that does is actually eliminate a whole trip. So they're not taking that into consideration. They mess with this.
Not just months. The last year was actually over 90% for the first time that I think is even in recorded memory for the MAXs in terms of reliability.
Well, I don't believe it. We don't believe it. We've watched this shit. Okay, we're watching operations. He's sitting here telling us what we know is not happening. But yet here he is telling us this is the best we've ever done at TriMet Max in the history of TriMet Max. And I'm listening to it daily. We watch the disruptions. It can't be accurate.
And buses were up to 88%.
88%. Yeah, sure.
Again, when we started, this was around 81.1 was the first year, about 4+ years ago.
I don't believe
so quite a large shift in how we deliver, the number we deliver, and our
That's why I don't
consistency.
watch this shit, because it's just live.
But this is also not just about TriMet. This is also about our partners, because a lot of this we do ourselves, but a lot of this we also do with our partnerships in different municipalities, counties, from ODOT to Metro. It's each one has their ability to contribute to changing the scar tissue of how we speed this region up, because it has historically been too slow. And it's going to be exacerbated as the population of this region continues to densify and grow as well. So it's very important work to get this platform reset to manage the growth and keep Max moving, keep the system moving. An example of, again, I've talked about is the Rose Lane project. It is a model for us all. It's working great. When Multnomah County reopened the Burnside Bridge, for example, last fall with the eastbound bus lane only, their operators themselves told us they're moving so much faster. In fact, they had to start to killing time at the stops to keep the schedule. So we're actually freeing up that kind of time through our partners' decision to help all of us keep moving. In Northeast Portland, the city extended just one turn lane to reduce traffic lines of traffic that block the buses. That one change reduced the delays on the line by 60%. So everyone thinks it always has to be a
60%?
long, big capital project. No,
60%?
one change can unlock a lot of time.
What the hell run has increased its on-time performance 60% because of one change? I don't have any idea. Does anybody know? He's not telling us what run that is.
And so this is where the partnership really pays off for us all. So again, it's speeding up buses and trains together and then recalibrating the schedules of that speeded up so people take net less time out of their day, and we basically give it back to them. One of the other examples, and I'm just going to ask Paige Sloop if she's here to come up. We received some pretty exciting news or encouraging news from the Federal Transit Administration around the Red Line expansion. So it just came back. It was just in the newspaper last week that we have received a medium to high grade rating, which is very encouraging for us. We had not anticipated this project.
Well, I guess it's better than a low rating, right? It doesn't sound like it's very hopeful.
Would be as ready and ripe, if you will, in the FTA's eyes for quite some time. The great news is it's coming. I think we've got a really serious shot at this. This is over a $200 million capital project.
But what?
And so
I still have no idea why this is costing $200 million. It's just, I can't watch this shit. I just can't watch this.
We're just gonna play a clip here now, and the star of the show is sitting right in front of you, Paige Sloop. You'll see in here that you'll see this played out in the public here very shortly.
This is part of updating our public information and information that's available on the project. So we
A
recently
better
updated
red.
our website and added this video that explains the project.
The Max Red Line provides vital connections within our region, including service to Portland International Airport. As we continue to improve our transit system, we're planning to extend the Red Line service to the Fair Complex Center in Hillsborough and make improvements that will increase reliability for the entire MAX system. Riders in Beaverton and Hillsborough have been asking for more MAX service for years, and we can see why. Currently, the Red Line turns around at Beaverton Transit Center, and Blue Line trains, which continue west to Hillsborough, are often packed. We have a plan to extend the Red Line service to 10 more West Side stations.
So this is going to actually increase service. Okay, there's going to be like instead of 15-minute service, there's going to be 10-minute service, so there's going to be more trains, right? More trains. See, they don't tell you exactly what the changes are going to be there. They don't give you the information you need to make an intelligent understanding of this stuff.
So that Red Line riders will be able to travel all the way to Fair Complex Hillsborough Airport MAX station. For this expansion, we will be improving tracks and switches, adding signals, and adding an operator brake.
You know, only 6% of the people that come in in the airport, only 6% use the MAX. Okay, that's true. Only 6% use this TriMet system.
Facility. On the east side, we're making changes that will help the entire MAX system stay on schedule. We'll be adding a second track to sections of the Red Line near Gateway Northeast 99th Avenue Transit Center and Portland International Airport.
With the existing single track, even a small delay on a red line train affects green and blue line trains passing through Gateway and has a domino effect that spreads throughout the system to the yellow and orange lines too. The new second track at Gateway will also mean faster trips for red line riders heading west by separating trains heading to PDX from trains heading to Portland City Center, Beaverton, and Hillsborough. With the new tracks, we'll build a new platform for trains coming from PDX. The new platform will only be used by red line trains coming from PDX and continuing to downtown Portland and beyond. The existing Gateway platforms will be served by red line trains heading toward PDX, as well as blue and green line trains. A new pathway will connect the new and existing platforms. North of the new red line platform, a new pathway will parallel the new MAX tracks over the freeway and railroad tracks, creating a new connection to Gateway Green Park. Design and engineering will continue through 2020, and construction could begin as early as 2021, with the project complete in 2024.
Oh my God, I don't know, man. I don't know. Does this look worth it to you? It doesn't look it to me. I mean, Jesus, it doesn't. I don't get it.
Excited to grow and improve the MAX system with a better red. To learn more, visit TriMet.org. Better red.
So, as we just turn over to Paige, you start to think about what's in front of us. We've just talked about the bus expansion. We've talked about the Division Transit project. Here comes the Red Line expansion. This is a significant transformation, let alone the excitement of enhanced transit corridors and the Southwest Corridor. So, this is the...
All right, I can't take any more of this. I don't know. What do I know? Okay, nothing. I just see a bunch of bullshit. That's what I really see here. You know, they're very good at presenting what they want to do, and is it actually necessary? I have very serious doubts that red line extension is going to do anything that's going to be noticeable by the public.